Back in the spring, we had the opportunity to do a first drive on this 2015 Hyundai Genesis. And we were really impressed with it at the time. But driving it for a few hours and driving it for a week can reveal two totally different cars. So, does the Genesis still continue to really excel, to really impress us? Or, after a week, is it just another car? Well, that's what we're going to find out here today on Rumblestrip.NET and 10-Minute Test Drive. So as we said, living with a car for a week, or let alone a year, versus driving it for a couple hours, you can have very different takes on it. And our take on driving a couple different versions of this 2015 Hyundai Genesis for, brief periods of time was excellent. And we wanted to know, as we said in the open, how does that work on a bit of a longer term basis? So we've had the opportunity to drive this car for a week, including a 700-mile road trip. And I have to say, it continues to amaze. Now, one of the things we should point out here is that most of the times when a press car is in the fleet, especially when it's supposed to be, and it is, a luxury car, it's usually loaded with absolutely every single option, or most options. This one is a little bit different. This is the absolute base model Genesis that you can buy. It is a 3.8 rear-wheel drive with 0 options. So if you really want to know how good a car can be, then what you do is you just strip it out as much as possible and go with the base version, right? Well, there's a couple things to think about here. As a base version at $38,000, the value on this vehicle is through the roof. Seriously, it is through the roof. If we were to buy this car, we would option it with all-wheel drive, which is a $2,500 option. Reason being, even with traction control and modern electronics, in the snow belt here in Southeast Michigan, there are enough days out of the year where the weather is garbage that it makes it nice to have all-wheel drive. Necessary? No. Convenient? Yes. And the sacrifice in fuel economy of about 1 to 2 miles to the gallon, is worth it in our opinion. Would we, with the option of all-wheel drive though, you have to stick with the 3.8. Is that a problem? Would we want the 5-liter in here? And the answer is no. I would be really good with just a 3.8. It's not phenomenally fast, but it's definitely quick enough. I had no issues with acceleration. It actually makes a pretty good noise when you put your foot in it. And you can't say that always for modern cars these times. And in fact, what you hear most times is more of a synthetic noise, and this feels more of a true V6 noise. Driving down the road though, it's quiet as you'd want it to be in here. So as a base car at $38,000, this thing is amazing. You option it up, and let's say you tick the 3 option boxes that you can as a 3.8 with all-wheel drive, and the 3 options that you can get, which would load it up, and you're still at $52,000. All right, now $38,000 to $52,000, that's $14,000 if my math works. And yes, that's a lot of money, and yes, it is a significantly better car with some of those options, including a better quality of leather. This isn't bad. It would have cooled seats. This only has heat seats. It has a much better stereo system. This one is adequate, and a bigger touchscreen. So, you do get some of the toys as you option it up. Do you miss them? Yeah, not too much. Cooled seats would be nice to have. But again, back to the point I wanted to make. At $52,000 as an all-wheel drive vehicle, fully loaded, it's still less than a new E-Class Mercedes base. So this loaded is cheaper than an E-Class Mercedes as a base. Is it as good as that? Can't say. Haven't driven it, but from colleagues that I know, they would say, the opinion is that it's every bit as good as it. Is this as good as an A6 Audi? Kind of depends what you're looking for. Value-wise, yes. Warranty-wise, yes. Long-term ownership, more than likely. Is the interior as good? No. As a performance sedan, are the driving dynamics as good? No. But then again, this is not a performance sedan. This is a luxury sedan, and I think that distinction needs to be made. How does it compete against the 5 Series BMW? Very well, especially when you consider that the 5 Series BMW these days is about what a 7 Series BMW was a generation or two ago, not only in size, but in ride and dynamics. It's become very much a luxury vehicle. While we were on a road trip, we had many people compliment us on the looks of this 2015 Genesis and ask us how it was. I think the fact that it is such a striking design, and yes, you could say it looks a lot like a lot of different cars, but it really does come together very nicely. The front end has a nice bold statement without being obnoxious. And overall, with the length of the car, the width, just the general heft of it, it flows very nicely. And just the fact that the general public who isn't into cars saw this and noticed it and complimented it, we think speaks well. And also believe that this design will probably age fairly well. Ride quality on this is quite good. You can tell that Hyundai has spent some time and some engineering prowess, and including hiring Lotus, to help tune the suspension. Many Hyundais over the years have decent ride on smooth pavement, but when you get to roads that have potholes, uneven pavement, they just didn't ride well. You felt a lot of harshness come through the chassis. Not so much on this. The tuning continues to be excellent. The steering is good. Again, if you look at it as a luxury vehicle and not a performance vehicle, the steering is fine. It's an electric steering system, and the weighting at low speeds is great. I mean, it's almost overboosted GM from the 70s in the sense of you could use one finger to turn it at parking lot speeds. Fuel economy on this has been very good. On our trip, we averaged, if you look at the computer average, we were doing 67 miles an hour. Realistically, on the road, we were doing between 70 to 80 miles an hour most of the time. And we returned 30 on the highway. And this is listed at 29 on the highway for this 3.8 liter rear wheel drive vehicle. 22 combined, 19 city. We're seeing about 24 combined on this. So it delivers as far as fuel economy. Again, one of the reasons that this V6 is so good is not only does it have good power, but the fuel economy it returns is very reasonable.